Alright, here we go. So, someone linked me this video, and they were like, oh my god. Someone mentioned Brigadage, and I used to watch upper echelon videos, because I thought, you know, they were pretty well done, so like I've always had a pretty positive view of the guy. And like, I'm assuming here that this isn't any sort of willful lying. I'm just assuming that he doesn't know exactly what Bridge is, and like most people, doesn't really take it seriously. This is the first time I've encountered someone reporting on Bridge that hasn't credited me for finding it, which, like, you know, that's fine. That's fine, but I take personal umbrage with a few of the things he said in the video, due to quite literally being the only person who has been digging on Bridge, and the fact that everyone else who has reported on Bridge has mentioned me in some capacity as the person that brought it to light. Even the anime racist Lotus Eater podcast credited me as the person who dug up everything. Never got to play Terra, but from what you've seen of it, it makes a huge impression, and the armors are nice. I fucking love Terra, man. Terra was such a good fucking game. So we're gonna go through this. We're gonna go through this.
Alright, today's video is once again about a topic that is pretty much always divisive, yet perpetually discussed. And to be completely honest here, I'm getting really sick of watching people mischaracterize, misrepresent, and misunderstand this topic.
Me too,
simply
buddy!
For personal or financial gain. I'm not going to make it overly specific on who those people are. That's not the purpose of the video, despite the fact I consider them grifters of the highest order. However, if I can provide a complete overview to the best of my ability for anyone who wants to understand these topics better,
grifters of the highest order, eh?
Grift, shall we say, may get blunted, which is probably a very good thing in today's political climate. To put it simply, we do not need more division right now. We need accuracy and critical thinking, which is currently, regrettably, very short supply.
I also agree.
With that said, let's officially get started. The real truth about DEI and Bridge, which is a term you're probably going to hear quite a bit more often soon enough, in a world where the...
Why does he think Bridge is a term that you're going to hear quite a bit more often soon enough? I've been reporting on it since January, and it has been like pulling teeth to get people to listen to it. Those that have reported on it, I am very grateful for them. But it's like, I have been trying to get this out for 7.5 months. And now you want to say that very soon you're going to hear this term more often, and you should just ignore it. I just... Why would you, like, go ahead and poison the well in that manner at the beginning of the video, right after talking about grifters of the highest order?
These topics are typically discussed with overcharged emotional baggage and inaccurate assumptions. First, we need definitions. At the top of the pyramid, the very top, is ESG, which stands for
correct about all of this right here.
Social and governance. ESG is effectively a screening mechanism for investments, where companies participating are expected to make ESG reports, which include everything from greenhouse gas emissions to labor practices, or even workforce diversity, which feeds into our next term. Underneath ESG, particularly inside the social arm of the framework, is DEI, standing for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Again, completely correct.
That rose to prominence and swept across Western society for the past couple of decades, climaxing around 2020, I believe, at the height of civil unrest in America. DEI refers to practices and policies intended to increase the amount of cultural diversity in a given workplace, often through incentive programs or additional hiring practices, specifically for that purpose. According to Built In, which is a tech startup community that I'll come back to and reference later on, quote, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is an ethos that recognizes the value of diverse voices and emphasizes inclusivity and employee welfare.
You commented on the video about me, and you think you might have deleted it? It was only when it had about 20 comments and 2K views? Weird. There were, like, 2 other people that commented on my Twitter post as well, that said that they brought me up on his video, and then their comments disappeared afterwards. So, that'd be really weird if he was deleting comments to do with me, considering how I'm not exactly a very prolific creator, as it were.
Well-being as central facets of success. To bring those values to life, companies must implement programs and initiatives.
YouTube deletes comments all the time if you use, like, you know, spooky language that YouTube doesn't like. But if comments specifically mentioning me are deleted, that's not YouTube. YouTube would have no reason to censor my name specifically. It could be coincidence that everybody who commented about me also used no-no language that YouTube doesn't like. But, you know, it's still a little weird. It's so random what they censor spooky language. Yeah, it really is. Ozehara has that problem on, like, all of his clips. Like, literally all of them. YouTube doesn't like the cherry.
Actively make their offices more diverse, equitable, and inclusive spaces, end quote. Hopefully that about sums it up nicely. Lastly, for definitions, as an extension of DEI, we have BRIDGE, B-R-I-D-G-E, which stands for Benchmarking Race, Inclusion, and Diversity in Global Engagement.
And here is where he says the first incorrect thing. The BRIDGE website he was looking at, the BRIDGE acronym is different. I can't ever remember the acronym off the top of my head. I just know that the G is the gap in all of those things from Cheryl Dijja. And I'll be replaying her video again, because don't worry, we gotta loop a little bit for the sake of information permeation. But the acronym he read off is for this bridge, the Social Impact Bridge. And when I first dove down into BRIDGE in January, and again, I'm the only one who has been digging into this, so I haven't had anyone do any sort of digging or research to try and figure out more about BRIDGE, to try and figure out if there's something I maybe missed. But I was talking to one of the journalists from Niche Gamer, because a whole bunch of you guys, like, just rammed their replies about Microsoft, and they actually noticed, and they actually started talking to me. And they seem very receptive to having me write about this for them. But they did bring up, and they were like, the timing of these things and the name and the people involved seem coincidental, right? Like, it's all on a decent timeline, but there isn't any hard evidence, only coincidental circumstance that links the first BRIDGE initiative to the second BRIDGE initiative. And I was like, I'm willing to say, right, like, maybe the BRIDGE monitoring program set up in 2021 isn't connected to the BRIDGE that was based on the research that was done that brought up in 2023. They could be disconnected from one another. I don't know. And since the company for the initial BRIDGE is called Social Impact, it's very difficult to find information on them, because if you try looking up Social Impact, you'll get inundated with a bunch of irrelevant things from everywhere else. Unlikely. I mean, unlikely, but when you are a journalist and not just a brain-damaged foxwoman on the internet, at least this is how journalism should work, right? You try to hold your evidence to a higher standard than just circumstantial. You want the hard connections proving X goes to Y, as it were. Which is where a lot of the Marxist subversion tactics get messy as well, because they're not going to come out and say, yes, actually, we are using the BRIDGE initiative, we are going underground, we're transforming language because we don't want you to notice. They're not going to come out and say that, so you just have to know what they are doing and provide the evidence from their own mouths of what they are doing that they don't expect you to see. Which is why, again, thankfully, I am talking to somebody who actually works in a journalistic sphere. I am going to be doing some interesting things coming up here, which means next week I might need to take a day or two off stream. I need it anyways, but I'll be doing some other work to present more insider information. Trenchcoat Foxu, I am merely 3 courses in a trench coat. How could I represent a threat to national security? Fox Sleuth.
And is, quote, an institutional survey that explores diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA, metric structures and practices at the organizational level across U.S. registered organizations in the international development and humanitarian sector, end quote. Just to recap, so we're all on the same page here, ESG takes place at what's called the investment level at the very top. DEI takes place at a company level under the social arm of ESG.
And this is where I also think that he gets it a little bit wrong. Like, yes, ESG is the top echelon of these things, and DEI is under the umbrella of ESG, but it's not a corporate arm. They have been calling ESG a moral imperative for quite a while. And companies like BlackRock and Vanguard were giving incentives to companies. If you were pushing this DEI stuff in your company, you would get money from them to continue. And as we saw with Bud Light, they lost their ESG scoring entirely when they didn't stick to the messaging after the boycotts. When did they add the A to DEI? They're going to be adding and removing a lot of acronyms because right now they are in defense mode once again. This is again how you know you are having an impact and things aren't hopeless. If things were hopeless, they wouldn't need to change the acronyms. They could just keep full steam ahead as they've been doing for the past couple of years. But because of the massive backlash, because of the people saying, I won't buy products from this company that does these things, because of the conservatives bringing lawsuits to these companies, they've needed to rethink their strategies in how they're going to keep doing this without people noticing. And this is where I will bring up a whole bunch of sources as well. Because like even though I have been doing this for 7.5 months, even though I put out all of the information on my streams, it's better to have something condensed that people coming for the first time or people who haven't been to my streams before can see that I'm not just giving you a, just trust me, bro. Just trust me.
Bridge is, quote, from their own website, a comprehensive DEI framework to help companies identify, deconstruct, and rethink their own structural gaps that contribute to inequities, end quote. ESG at the top, DEI down below, and Bridge as a tool in the execution of DEI initiatives.
And what he is correct about here is that Bridge is, in fact, the tool for DE&I initiatives. But he doesn't seem to understand exactly what they are as a tool. And on their website, you can see how many companies are involved with Bridge. You don't even really need to ask where the money is coming from, though I would like to find out more about who is directly funding them, because they have so many companies that can pump them full of money and keep pushing the message that they might not even need outside funding.
It's a very basic roadmap. Shout out to everyone who made it this far in the video. I greatly appreciate you. Now we can move on.
We're only 3 minutes and 26 seconds into the video. What does he mean by I greatly appreciate anyone who's made it this far? He hasn't even used any like difficult language. He hasn't put forth any sort of difficult to understand content. Just a little bit weird to put it that early in the video. Like, I know when I go on, like, 3 to 5 hour rants about corporate schlock, and I'm like, here's another 19-page white paper, chat. Let's read it together. I'm like, I know your eyes are gonna glaze over. My eyes are gonna glaze over, so, like, buckle up, baby. But, like, 3.5 minutes, man?
On to the more interesting stuff. Bridge, as an organization, has a board of directors with an executive committee and basic members from all over corporate America. There are some very big names here that people like to reference, but the gist of it is that this group is extremely, extremely well connected. Sephora.
Him noticing how well connected they are is going to be a very weird thing to remember when we get to the end of the video.
Discover, NBC Universal.
Literally copying Kirsch's homework.
Who doesn't know is a massive media conglomerate that owns publications like Ars Technica, GQ, The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Vogue, or even Wired. All of these brands and many more are represented in the Bridge board of directors, including a company called McKinsey & Co. Bear with me here, because McKinsey & Co. is a global management consulting firm that is largely responsible for the rise of corporate DEI initiatives.
Again, he's entirely correct in what he's saying here. Like, when I was watching this video, at the beginning, I was like, well, it's a little weird to call everyone else grifters, but, like, I'm liking the information you're putting out so far. It echoes everything I've been saying for the last 7.5 months. That's great. We have more people talking about this. And then my opinion changed very drastically.
Across the professional world. See, pretty much all of it traces back to a particular research paper of theirs from 2015 called Diversity Matters, which, despite being relatively unknown, especially to the vocal critics of ESG or DEI, or soon to be Bridge, is actually the inception point for pretty much...
Again, he says DEI soon to be Bridge. Bridge is not a rebranding. Bridge still uses the DEI language. Bridge, as he said previously, is a tool to promote DEI initiatives. Bridge, in their own words, is there to transform DEI from a moral imperative to a DNA of the company, I can never pronounce this fucking word. Operationalization of business practice of the DEI tenets.
the entire corporate America DEI craze. In 2015, shortly after the initial paper came out, the Wall Street Journal posted about its findings even, saying, quote, "A new study of 366 public companies in the US, Canada, UK, Brazil, Mexico, and Chile by McKinsey & Co., a major management consultancy, found a statistically significant relationship between companies with women and minorities in their upper ranks and better financial performance as measured by earnings before interest and tax, or EBIT," end quote. Also, according to Notre Dame University in a write-up titled History of DEI, the Evolution of Diversity Training Programs, quote, "A McKinsey report highlighted that companies with high racial and ethnic diversity are more likely to have financial returns above their industry medians. This business case for diversity prompted more companies to integrate DEI strategies into their operations, from talent acquisition to customer engagement."
And from all of the articles we've read that Bridge pushes in their Smart Brief, every single article, when they talk about how DEI is a moral imperative, how DEI is not only necessary, but it is financially good for companies, every single one of them quotes the McKinsey study. Every single one.
End quote. And to really hammer the point home here, remember the tech startup community that I mentioned earlier when quoting the definition of DEI called built-in? Yeah, that very same article from March of this year, 2024, in a section called Improved Business Outcomes, cites a Forbes article claiming that firms displaying culturally and ethnically diverse executive teams are 33% more likely to lead their industries in profitability. The thing is, if you go check the article they cited, they being Forbes in this case, the actual research that they're referring to is the very same work from McKinsey & Co.
Why are there florkies? Why have they stolen his artwork?
Actually, that includes over 1,000 companies, not just the initial 366. My point here, for anyone who's not able to follow along so far, is to showcase that incredibly divisive topics, ESG, DEI, and soon, Bridge, have been almost exclusively built around the idea that more diverse companies are somehow more profitable. But what if I told you that the entire initial premise was wrong, and that the research was completely inverted in a way that proves absolutely nothing?
He is again 100% correct here, but he comes to the incorrect conclusion.
Let's read an actual section of the research paper, the one that seems to have started off all of this, called Diversity Matters. Quote, "Analysis of the data from the group of 366 companies revealed a statistically significant connection between diversity and financial performance. The companies in the top quartile for gender diversity were 15% more likely to have financial returns that were above their national industry median, and the companies in the top quartile for racial/ethnic diversity were 35% more likely to have financial returns above their national industry median." Exhibit 1. This correlation does not prove that the relationship is causal, that greater gender and ethnic diversity in corporate leadership automatically translates into more profit, but rather indicates the companies that commit to diverse leadership are more successful. The existence of the relationship is statistically significant and consistently present in the data. End quote. Just to be very, very clear, that's big. That's massive and huge. Claiming that companies with increased executive diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their national industry mean is enormous. And taking this research on its face, it becomes abundantly clear why so many different companies began aggressively promoting DEI initiatives and doubling or tripling or quadrupling down on the idea of increasing diversity by any means necessary.
We have seen this pattern time and time again, right? Ideologue creates a study that reinforces their beliefs, cites themselves, journalists report on it ad infinitum, and all cite the same exact faulty source. We have seen this with the McKinsey study. We have seen this with John Money and the rise of transgenderism. We have seen this even most recently with Ubisoft's new Assassin's Creed game, where the guy who created the entire story about Yasuke being a samurai wrote a book about it himself and kept editing the Wikipedia articles in order to push his fiction as fact. So we know that they do this. We know that they create studies, they don't have them peer-reviewed, they don't have them checked, and they just perpetuate it as fact. So this isn't corporations looking at a study and going, you know what, we need to do that. This is an ideologue who made a study, sold it to everyone they could talk to about selling it, so that people could come in and transform the corporate landscape. This is, again, Nobody likes the word, and I'm sure I'll get called a grifter for it. This is Marxism in action. It's absolutely ridiculous. You really wish people would start paying more attention rather than believing everything they say. To look at corporations and just be like, those silly corporations, they just didn't know any better. They just didn't know that this was all manufactured and made up. That's why every time they change the terminology, they all do it at the same time. It's just coincidence, you conspiracy theorists.
However, this is where things start to fall apart and where the entire house of cards comes crashing down very rapidly. ESG and DEI don't work. To be clear, I'm not saying that diversity is a bad thing. Don't get it twisted here.
The people who are pro-DEI agree with this sentiment. This is the point of Bridge. In Bridge's, like, initial outreach, they were like, DEI in its current iteration does not work. DEI in its current iteration is not being treated as seriously as it needs to be. Both the people against DEI and the people at Bridge and the people who are pro-DEI came to the same exact conclusion. It is not working. The difference where we divulge, which I added in my Sherm video, which when I reacted to Tim Pool saying that Charlemagne was also sick of DEI, I put out the evidence showing that these ideologues infiltrating companies are not saying we need to do away with DEI because it's not working and it's not profitable. They're saying it didn't go far enough. We need to embed DEI in the heart of the company, make it part of everyone's job. We need to get rid of DEI teams and DEI positions, and just everyone in the company has to comply. This is the next step, which is why all of these companies at the same exact time are going, oh, we just didn't know it wouldn't be profitable. We're cutting our DEI teams, guys. Believe us, we're done with this. It's out of here. It wasn't profitable. And much like people who would say, I don't like Black Lives Matter, the organization, but I support the message. People who do the same thing with DE&I, and they're just like, well, diversity and inclusion is a good thing. I'm not saying that. Don't get it twisted. I understand the want to say that, because the actual definition of a diversity, the actual definition of inclusion, is a good thing. The problem is that the people who advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion are not using the actual definitions of diversity or inclusion. They are using these words subversively to make people believe they are doing good things while they positively discriminate against people they believe deserve to be discriminated against. This is where understanding what subversion is very important. And if someone hasn't watched, like, the Yuri Bezmenov speeches in the 80s, I would highly recommend listening to them.
I'm saying that increasing diversity alone does not create a 35% higher likelihood of increased financial returns. First, for ESG, at the top level, the investor side of things, the entire ethos is just smoke and mirrors. According to research from Vox EU, which looked at ESG fund performance and investment returns, quote, as a final piece of evidence, we calculate the hypothetical returns a fund would earn based on the disclosed portfolio and compare them to its realized returns. In Figure 2, we observe that in the 10 days leading up to disclosure, funds tend to underperform the portfolio they are about to disclose. This observation is consistent with the idea that, during this period, they incur meaningful transaction costs, as they adjust their portfolio to include more environmentally friendly and sustainable assets. However, following the disclosure event, we notice a shift in performance dynamics. Funds begin to outperform the portfolio that they have just disclosed, indicating that they are now holding higher paying assets than the ones they have recently made public. This trend is in line with the hypothesis that after the disclosure event, funds might replace some ESG assets with higher yielding but less sustainable assets, end quote. To simplify that, because a lot of it's boring, I know, ESG funds are not even holding assets that conform to their own ideology. These investment portfolios
of course
are
they're
most
not.
likely
Because the whole point of this ideology is not that it is working for the people pushing it. It is supposed to be for the average person on the ground. These are not tenets that most of the people pushing this actually believe in. They know that it is a tool that they can use to force compliance on people in order to push an ideological agenda to change the culture to what they want it to be. Help. Caffeinated fox. I did have a big fucking coffee. As someone who interviewed and hired a lot of folks, the company Meritocracy will give you better returns on your investment when it comes to people. Absolutely, but they do not want meritocracy. Meritocracy to them is a dirty, far-right, no-no word. You don't want meritocracy because meritocracy is racist. Again, they are not using the actual definition of meritocracy. They're saying that people who claim to want meritocracy merely want to be biased against and not hire black people or women or disabled people or the gays. They're saying meritocracy is a dog whistle word that people use because they just want only white people to have any sort of privilege. They use DEI as an excuse for reverse racism. I wouldn't even call it reverse racism because that's giving into their language. Racism against white people is just racism. Much like there's no reverse sexism. There's just sexist against men, right? That's projection, exactly. And before I scoot on too far, because I want to bring up from the McKinsey study, where is my page on the McKinsey study? I know I had a page. On the McKinsey study, again, verifying the device. Hold on, Wall Street Journal. Hold on, what does that mean? Am I gonna get flagged by, like, fucking... Okay, I need to put this into archive anyways. Archive.is. Hold on a sec. Search. It is not archived yet. Well, alright, I'm archiving this website. Hold on. You absolutely hate it when people say reverse racism, like it's only white people that are racist. It's a very weird thing to have permeated our language, and again, it shows how easily something can become normalized, even if it's wrong. Diversity was supposed to make us rich, not so much. New research questions the methodology of a McKinsey study that helped create widespread belief that diversity is good for profits. And this is from June 28th, 2024. So this is only a couple of days before Microsoft cut their DEI team. This is only a couple of weeks before all of the other companies in lockstep have been like, oh, we're getting rid of our DEI too. We're still committed. We're still committed to what that means, but we're just getting rid of the language. We're putting our workers elsewhere in the company. When management consulting firm McKinsey declared in 2015 that it had found a link between profits and executive racial and gender diversity, it was a breakthrough. The research was used by investors, lobbyists, and regulators, what a weird word, to push for more women and minority groups on boards, and to justify investing in companies that appointed them. Unfortunately, the research doesn't show what everyone thought it showed. No, I just don't believe you, corporate scum. There are obvious benefits of diverse corporate leadership for society, both in providing role models and in showing a commitment to promoting the best people, irrespective of skin color or gender. But doing it because it is the right thing is not the same as doing it because it makes more money. Since 2015, the approach has been tested in the fire of the marketplace and failed. The fire of the marketplace. What is it that Cheryl Dijja said again? That they need to refocus their attempts on work in the marketplace because not enough has been done to really know how to push DEI correctly in the marketplace. Academics have tried to repeat McKinsey's findings and failed, concluding that there is in fact no link between profitability and executive diversity. And the methodology of McKinsey's early studies, which helped create the widespread belief that diversity is good for profits, is being questioned. McKinsey has tried to remedy one of the most obvious flaws. It originally linked profits over several years with diversity at the end of the period, meaning that the most it could prove is that profitability led to more diversity, not the other way around. In its latest study, it had now run the test using diversity at the start of the period and still found a correlation. And this is going to be what you're going to be seeing for the next few months as companies try to convince you that they are dropping their DEI programs. They're not. And they're going to say, oh, well, it's just not profitable. We didn't realize it wasn't as profitable. We were hoodwinked by the McKinsey study, and we're gonna get rid of all these DEI teams, and we're gonna go back to profit. It is not about the profit, right? These companies in the beginning were promised from BlackRock and Vanguard and those type of companies, any profits you lose will be made up by our grants. Once these companies were permeated by the priests pushing this ideology, and they started losing massive amounts of money, started facing boycotts, it was a bit too late because the ideologues had already taken root. For the ideologues who infiltrated the company, it was not about profit. It was never about profit to those people who sought to be inside these companies pushing their agenda. It is about the long-term cultural victory. If they can forego profit in the short term and make it out on the other side, transforming corporate culture, transforming customer opinion, they will have won. In light of a recent study criticizing our methodologies, we have reviewed our research and continue to stand by its findings. The diverse leadership teams are associated with a higher likelihood of financial outperformance, McKinsey said. We have also been clear and consistent that our research identifies correlation, not causation, and that those two things are not the same. The trouble is that McKinsey behaves as though the studies do show causation, constantly talking out of the corporate benefits of diversity. And that is exactly what they're going to do. Again, Kim Belair came out and boldface said, if these companies don't want what you are selling, strike fear into them so that they believe that they need you or else they will fail. Even the correlation is in doubt. Academics can't replace McKinsey's study precisely because it keeps secret the names of the companies it used. But a paper published this year finds that McKinsey's methodology doesn't show benefits from diversity for S&P 500 companies for a range of profitability metrics. It isn't that a lack of diversity is good for profits either, it's just that there's no link. That's because when a company doesn't focus on the type of diversity that these ideologues are trying to spread, and they are just naturally diverse by the actual definition of the word, they do well, because these are people who have the ability to do the jobs, have the ability to work together, aren't going to be constantly talking about microaggressions and other such perceived injustices in the workplace. They're going to do their jobs. This shouldn't come as a surprise if companies could boost their profits as easily as McKinsey suggested. The most diverse firms had a 39 percentage point higher chance of higher than average profit margins than the least diverse. Then surely companies would have rushed to promote more women and minority racial groups. It seemed implausible because companies would have jumped on it and the advantages would be competed anyway, said John Hand, an accounting professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. With Jeremiah Green of Texas A&M University, he found no results that were statistically significant when repeating McKinsey's study for the S&P 500. McKinsey keeps secret the names of the companies in its study, which in 2015 included 186 from the US and Canada, so it can't be independently verified. When you have a study that not only lies about itself in order to get itself the de facto expert on the subject entirely, that it is the only site sourced for any of this nonsense, and yet it keeps all of its names and research secret, that's a problem. Many such cases. This matters because the McKinsey study was hugely influential. McKinsey's research figures first in BlackRock's references for supporting a board diversity target of 30% in its proxy voting guidelines. It featured prominently among studies used by a Securities and Exchange Commission commissioner in 2020 to explain why she supported corporate disclosure of diversity metrics. NASDAQ cited it as evidence when the exchange applied to the SEC for a rule requiring companies it lists to have a minimum diversity on boards, or explain why they don't. It has been cited by dozens of campaign groups pushing for rules to support consideration of social issues by pension funds and others too. McKinsey's influence wasn't only on policy, which ought anyway to consider moral and societal issues as well as purely financial ones. BlackRock and Refinitiv, now part of the London Stock Exchange Group, cited the study as evidence of financial benefits from diversity when they created an ETF that tracked a diversity index. That index has lagged behind badly since its 2018 launch, returning about 55% against more than 70% for the global index without diversity conditions. This seems to be less about diversity than the choice of how to invest in it. Help. The ETF is equal weighted, which has held it back against giant stocks beat the rest of the market. Because of the diversity requirements, it held a lot more banks and insurers and less technology than the market as a whole. A similar fund was created earlier by the State Street Global Advisors with the ticketer SHE. It was promoted through the Fearless Girl statue, briefly installed opposite Wall Street's Bronze Bull and now opposite the New York Stock Exchange, and backed by research from MSCI, which claimed a 36% higher return on equity for firms with at least 3 women on the board, or strong female leadership. I always found it funny that the woman statue they put in front of the bull basically symbolized women impeding progress, as if they didn't understand what a bull market was. I might not understand stocks and bonds, but I at least know that much. Like, if I'm kind of retarded and I can know that much, like, what are you doing? You remember that statue they put up in the city? A moment's thought would suggest this was far too high a figure to be explained by the presence of a handful of women, and subsequent deep underperformance shows skepticism was the right response. Since its 2016 launch, the fund's return has lagged more than 70 percentage points behind that of the top 1,000 companies, from which it selected before switching to an MSCI gauge 2 years ago. It has shrunk from a peak of 400 million to 245 million. McKinsey said in its original paper that it stands to reason that more diverse companies are better able to win top talent and improve their customer orientation, employee satisfaction, and decision-making, leading to a virtuous cycle of increasing returns. Common Sense also says it's easier to avoid potentially catastrophic groupthink if people have a range of different experiences. Yeah. Now, let's avoid potentially catastrophic groupthink by making sure all of the people that work with us only think like us, and if they dare to disagree, they just get fired. As thumbs up, perfect. As I just like the fact that so many people didn't realize what this was sooner, myself included, is kind of crazy. Common Sense also insists that it's important to build team spirit and trust, where people with a shared background have a head start. University of Chicago law professor Lisa Bernstein showed this for New York's Jewish diamond dealers, who would score 0 for diversity but gained financially by the trust from their common heritage. Okay. Similar studies have shown the same for other small ethnic business groups. Bernstein thinks such trust can be built from networks of social connections, but it comes built in for some backgrounds. Skin color and sex don't perfectly capture diversity of thought, anyway. A privately educated black Harvard Business School graduate would probably think much the same way about business as a white one. How is this whole... How are they just like, yeah, diversity is really important, but like, these businesses who have a trust bond from their common heritage are actually outperforming those who have higher diversity scores. I was just like, man. A top female New York lawyer may have a similar experience of life, or lack of it, as a male one. McKinsey's diversity of thought suggestions don't extend to, for example, appointing worker representatives to the board, even though their ideas might be quite well different to those of senior management. Finally, correlation is not causation. McKinsey repeatedly says in its study that it only found a correlation. The Aztecs mistook correlation for causation with tragic results, cutting out the heart of a victim to rekindle fire every 52 years in order to ensure the world's survival. There was a strong correlation between the human sacrifice and the world not ending, but no causation. Investors don't risk having vital organs removed, but they should pay more attention to the studies that they rely on. Wowzers, Christ on a stick. How do these people even function on a daily basis? Yeah, that's my point. But I wanted to read this about the McKinsey study because, again, I'm willing to bet the majority of the preachers pushing this knew that the McKinsey study was bunk, but they knew that it looked good enough that they could use it, like Kim Belair said, to strike fear into companies, to say, if you don't abide by what this study's saying, people will boycott you, people will get upset with you. This is the future. You're going to get money from BlackRock et al. If you comply with this kind of standard. But now that we've kind of found out what they're doing, now that people who agree with the DEI advocates that DEI isn't working, but for a different reason, are now bringing a lot of calamity to these companies, the preachers are going to dig this underground. And this is where we go back and we keep going into the video. We keep going.
Arranging their assets before and after disclosure events selling off stock in better earning companies so that their assets on paper, at least at the specific time of disclosure, will better reflect the ideology of the fund. Just smoke and mirrors. Second, DEI, with regards to that famous paper from McKinsey, is just completely backwards. Over the years, many academic publications have tried and failed to replicate McKinsey's findings, but an excellent summary comes from Econ Journal Watch, conducted by Jeremiah Green and John R.M. Hand. From the conclusion, quote, "Our findings lead us to two main conclusions and an emphasis. First, we conclude that caution is warranted in relying on McKinsey's findings to support the view that U.S. publicly traded firms can deliver improved financial performance if they increase the racial/ethnic diversity of their executives, not only because we are unable to replicate the same statistically reliable association between firm financial performance and executive race/ethnic diversity as they report, but also because the structure of McKinsey's tests are such that by measuring firm financial performance over the 4 to 5 years leading up to the year in which they judge the race/ethnicity of firms' executives, the default direction of causality that McKinsey capture in the positive correlation they report is that better firm financial performance causes firms to diversify the racial/ethnic composition of their executives, not the reverse." End quote. Simplified, and all of you are troopers who made it this far, because I know that this is ridiculously dry and a lot of it's hard to understand, but I appreciate.
This is the second time in 11 minutes that he has said that. This is only a 16-minute, 46-second video. Are normies really this unable to pay attention to any kind of information for that length of time? Like, am I crazy? Is that I would feel like I'm being insulting if I'm like, now audience, if you've managed to make it 10 minutes into this video. He has the YouTube statistics to prove it. God damn. No matter how dumb you think normies are, they're considerably dumber, apparently.
Appreciate you. Again, simplified. Successful companies are not successful because they are diverse. Successful companies become more diverse in the process of growth and achievement. McKinsey had it backwards. The real problem here is that correlation does not equal...
I don't think McKinsey had it backwards on accident. Again, like John Money, like the guy that I genuinely can't remember the name of with Yasuke, they do this on purpose. They know what they're doing. They know it's disingenuous. They are not accidental whoopsie-doopsie dummy heads. It is on purpose. It is lying.
Causation, a phrase that most people have probably heard of before in their life, and a fact that McKinsey rightly acknowledges in their own...
Yasuke! Well, at least I'm not pronouncing it Yasuke.
...own paper, but that hasn't stopped them, and pretty much everyone else who ever discusses the concept of ESG and DEI favorably, and soon to be Bridge as well, from heavily insinuating that correlation in this particular...
Once again, Bridge is not a rebranding.
...case does equal causation, resulting in a very widespread misunderstanding that scientific research has been established backing the idea that increased diversity through force of policy somehow increases the likelihood of outperforming industry average revenue targets. No such scientific research exists. The stone-cold truth of the situation is that ESG and DEI do not work. Investment portfolios structured around ESG hide the fact that they're not making enough money by holding approved assets alone, while companies exploring the effects of DEI are waking up to the fact that it has no financial benefit to them.
And again, this is the point. They know that it has no financial benefit. They know that they are pushing this in the hopes of transforming the culture. Again, this is from their own mouths. This is Larry Fink talking about...
It's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year, and what we are doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay,
we're doing the same thing.
And so it's just you have to force.
If you don't comply, if you don't force these behaviors at your company, your compensation could be impacted. And as we've seen, their compensation absolutely is impacted. We've seen it with Bud Light. We've seen it with other companies who have cut their CEOs for not pushing this nonsense. Can companies just make neat things, please? No. Because again, we have been in a culture war for decades. Longer than since I've been alive. Longer than since upper echelon has probably been alive. I know people don't like hearing that, but that is what this is. And these are the ideologues bringing about the normalization. They have done destabilization for many, many years. And now they come around saying, it's time to force behaviors. It's time that you comply whether you want to or not. That's why the DEI teams are being cut. That's why DEI positions are going away. They're getting rid of the visible DEI and making it the job of everyone at the company, which is what the Bridge Initiative is. It follows in line exactly with what Larry Fink is saying. It follows in line with exactly what all of these other companies are saying, where they're like, whoopsie doopsie, we didn't know it was profitable, we're getting rid of our DEI team, but we're still committed. We're still committed to DE&I. Don't worry, we're not getting rid of it. We're just getting rid of the positions. And for some reason, everyone who reads those articles, even if they read those words out loud, they go, yay! Yay, we're winning! They're getting rid of DEI! And it's like, you literally read it out loud. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities. And we're going to have to force change.
They're going to have to force the change. Wow, I wonder what Bridge is doing. Well, I wonder where we've heard forcing the change before. I wonder where we've heard that, chat.
For belonging, representation, inclusion, diversity, the G is the gap in all of those things, and then the E is equity. And our mission is really about moving the narrative of DE&I away from philosophy to operationalizing inclusion as a business practice. So our North Star is that. Our North Star is not necessarily marketing per se, because we believe that inclusion needs to cross the entire organization, marketing included, but you know, everywhere from organizational practices all the way to advocacy. And so the way that we come at it is that we look at the business practices, you know, our goal is really about operationalizing inclusion, as I said, as a business practice, not a philosophy anymore. Yeah. And, you know, to your point, Sasha, what that does is it removes the dependency of DE&I from an individual personal function, and it places it squarely on everyone in the organization, right? And so I can talk a little bit about a framework that...
Again, I'm not commenting too much because I've played this video a gajillion times. I just want this information here, specifically when I'm talking about Upper Echelon's video for everyone who sees it. This making it the job of everyone is the new language. Bridge is not a rebranding. It is the same DEI, but it is the next step in them transforming the culture at large. Not just corporate culture, but outside of corporate culture.
We've created, but I'll let you, you know, maybe ask other questions and then we can get there.
No, I mean, I would love to hear this framework because you are speaking my language, right? I have always been one that said this needs to be a part of the DNA of the organization.
That's right.
If something happened to the one person that's responsible, it should not make everything else fall apart. And so one of the things that we're noticing right now is so many organizations are letting go or cutting back the resources or funds to their diversity and inclusion offices, their chief diversity officers, etc. And people are just like, okay, so if that's gone, what else do we do? And it's like, it should be part of your DNA. It should be part of your everyday operations.
And with them saying that companies are making budget cuts, right? This was something they were worried about back when this was posted. I posted this in March. So this was this video probably came out on their channel like either early March or end of February, right? So they knew that budget cuts were happening, and they were like, we need to figure out a way to keep this moral imperative in companies without them having to spend money on it specifically. And the conclusion they came to, again, was companies were not doing enough to push the ideology. Get rid of the DEI positions Stop spending money on extra people that only have one job. Make pushing DEI, make pushing the ideology, make doing, quote unquote, the work, the job of everyone at the company.
Regardless of which department you're a part of, and it goes beyond your employees. Like, how is it impacting the industry that you're a part of? How is it impacting your customers and clients? You know, all of those things. And so, like I said, you're speaking my language. So, you know, tell us a little bit about this framework, because I think, you know, many of the people that listen to this show are, you know, some are DEI practitioners, some are in HR or in culture teams, and some are just leaders, you know, within their organizations that want to be more inclusive. And so if you could share that framework so people have an understanding of, okay, these are some things I need to be considering or thinking about.
Yeah. So, okay. So we decided kind of early on when we when you know, we created Bridge, and you know, it should be said,
DEI practitioner sounds so horrible. How could anyone willingly call themselves that? Another new language that developed when they were trying to obfuscate DEI officer and practitioner positions was they started using people officer. And people officer in Germany was the Volksführer. It was a position that Hitler himself had held before becoming just the Führer. So they're actually using interesting terminology.
that we're still a young organization. We're not yet a toddler, but you know, we're courageous, so we act like teenagers. And so very early on, I was connected. So I had worked in a past project with an incredible professor of marketing at Emory University, Dr. Omar Rodriguez Villa. And I was talking to him when I was creating Bridge, and I said, you know, Omar, what research can we do that will change the trajectory and start to allow people, everyone in every company, to understand that inclusion is the job of all and not the job of one. And so together we created a research program called Voices of Inclusion. And what we wanted to do was to...
Sounds like they're self-reporting. When they tell you what they're doing, it's very obvious. Like, when they think they're in a room full of people that believe what they believe and think what they think, they are far more mask off than the flowery language that they use in articles meant for the general populace consumption. Which is, again, why I want even more insider information from them and possibly get even more expose on what's going to be happening upcoming in the future. Which, again, I might need to take a couple of days off here soon in order to do that.
Understand what the business practices were that contribute to equities or inequities in the marketplace. We focused on the marketplace because clearly there would be dependencies on the workplace, and there's not a lot of research out there on the marketplace, right? And so if you're an inclusive brand in the marketplace, then you're obviously doing some pretty good stuff in the workplace. So we interviewed about 50 chief diversity officers, chief marketing officers, and CEOs. And what I should say, just as a kind of a...
That's crazy that they believe they can be so brazen as if nobody finds this. To be fair, I'm the only one that found it. And I found it by an infinitesimally lucky happenstance. If I hadn't decided to use my peak curiosity to Google about fucking Campbell's soup, none of us would know about this right now. Nobody would be talking about it, because the only people that have talked about it are people who got the information from me.
Side, Sasha, I think it's important, is if you look at the Bridge board of directors, you'll see an intersection between chief diversity officers. So we have like the chief diversity officer from Discover Financial and Unilever and Nielsen. But then we have the marketing leaders from Colgate and Indeed and Campbell's. And then we have CEOs from a number of different companies. Because we believe, again, this is kind of acting out on our mission, is that the change needs to happen at that intersection of DE&I, marketing and business. So
I even put it on YouTube. If these people are nothing else, they're smug. They believe they're on the right side of history. They are the good people fighting evil injustices. They will bring about the wonderful utopia where everyone is equal and equity provides for all. So it's it's not like everyone is trying to hide exactly what they're doing. They only try to hide it when they put out the articles for public consumption. Speaking of you being the one who found it, you're so fucking happy that you watch Pippa. You love the bunny so much. What the heck? I love the bunny too. She's not a political streamer though, so please don't bring up any of this in her chat. And then moving back to Upper Echelon's video here.
If you want evidence of all this, try Microsoft as an example, who recently laid off their DEI team entirely, circulating an internal email that read, quote, "True systems change work associated with DEI programs everywhere are no longer business critical or smart as they were in 2020, end quote." Or how about Zoom?
Wait, hold on, what? Hold on, sir. Sir, you skipped something. Sir, hold on. Hold on a second. You read the true systems change thing, but if you scroll down, in 2020, Microsoft pledged to double the number of black leaders within the company by 2025. The company's progress on this pledge is also unclear. And then down here, our DEI commitments remain unchanged. A Microsoft spokesperson, Jeff Jones, said in a statement, "Our focus on diversity and inclusion is unwavering, and we are holding firm on our expectations, prioritizing accountability and continuing to focus on this work." Now, if you have Bridge telling you you need to make DE&I the job of everyone at the company, if you have Microsoft saying, we're getting rid of our DEI team, but our commitment remains unchanged, we're going to continue prioritizing and focusing on this work. If you know the language that they use, if you know what they're trying to do, you know exactly what Microsoft is saying here. Even if you aren't someone that knows about Bridge, that doesn't know that they're trying to go underground and making it the job of everyone at the company so it can't be easily pointed out, so that conservatives can't bring lawsuits against them, how can you still read true systems change work associated with DEI programs everywhere are no longer business critical or smart, and then read our commitment remains unchanged and not go, wait a minute, that seems to contradict itself? Even if you know nothing, how do you not notice the contradiction? Not teaching critical thinking and not teaching pattern recognition has been a severe failure of our education system, and it's on purpose. And he also wanted to bring up Zoom. I'm not sure if I have the Zoom article offhand, but continuing with Microsoft, I also found from Microsoft, they have a post here. Microsoft hosted a panel at the Cannes Lions Festival, Microsoft Curiosity and AI in Marketing. 1 year into the introduction of AI tools, get some of our inside tips on how we can all rethink the creative process. Join brand leaders from Microsoft and Instrument for an inspiring discussion on how to unleash your full creative potential. This panel will explore the innovative ways creators and brands are using AI to revolutionize storytelling across various platforms. This was something Sherm also mentioned. We both listened to Sherm talk about how AI is going to be used in order to solidify diversity and inclusion in the workforce. We saw Amazon in their white page talk about how AI is going to be informing them and their business structure on equity as well. So this is nice language that makes you think this has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It doesn't even mention it bold-faced. But once you get to the post here, day one of Bridge Cannes 24 was incroyable. Our founder and CEO, Cheryl Daija, opened the Cannes Lions Festival, moderating the AI and Impact, an audience-first tale of economics, inclusivity, and sustainability panel. Thanks to AIX Live and Microsoft for hosting the engaging fireside session, and huge shout out to the Bridge board for cheering Cheryl on and for continuing to commit to DEI in the industry. We can't wait to continue learning and growing with you all this week. And even if you saw this, if you have no idea what Bridge is, if you have no idea who Cheryl Daija is, this doesn't jump out at you as anything strange. This doesn't jump out at you as anything new or anything different that they've been doing. But because Cheryl is here. Cheryl was invited by Microsoft, and we know what Bridge's directive is. Bridge says, get rid of your visible DEI teams, get rid of your visible DEI officers. This is a moral imperative. You must operationalization this as a business practice. You must have this be the job of everyone at your company and not just one person. Her being on this panel, again, June 17th, the Microsoft DEI layoffs were July 1st. That is exactly 2 weeks. If you think a company that would spend money to host this panel, a company that promised different DEI resources to finish by 2025, would just about face entirely, our commitment to DE&I remain unchanged. Nothing is changing. This is not a win. This is them embedding it in the company. And the only thing preventing them from doing so is the amount of people who notice and call it the fuck out. They're doing exactly what Bridge is recommending that they do, which is why Cheryl is on this panel. And I even brought up this so you can see the Microsoft branding on the slide. AI and impact, economic, inclusivity, sustainability. Microsoft is not changing anything. And then, on the same panel that Microsoft was hosting, there's this video. Again, I'm not speculating, I'm not inserting my opinion, I am telling you exactly what they are telling you. Don't believe me, believe them.
We all have heard and seen that DEI is under attack. So Charlene, with your purview, what would you advise our audience here today as a response to what they're hearing within their own corporate walls?
Unfortunately, our community has a legacy of dealing with attack. So whatever you need to call it, do the work, period. This work informs your strategies. This work makes your team stronger. This work informs where the next big thing will come from, how you stay current, and how you can stay a leading edge brand or content provider. So if the acronym bothers you, change the acronym.
Yeah, just change
it.
Do the work.
Without that strategy to make your company, culture, and teams smarter and better informed, you won't be able to hit the strategies that you need to meet this demand because the change is already here.
And so you have to continue to do the work, because when the acronyms change, when the framework with how we talk about it changes, you want to ensure that consumers know that you were down the entire time and that you were invested in them and them as audiences for your brand the entire time. So you have to be consistent. You have to consistently do the work.
Microsoft not only hosted the panel, but on the videos online, they just, they stuck their name on it. Anyone who believes that Microsoft is actually getting rid of DEI doesn't understand what Bridge is. I don't think the people who don't understand that are disingenuous. I don't think they're lying. I just think they don't know what Bridge is. And that's perfectly normal, because again, I've been the only person talking about it for 7.5 months. It's very understandable that people do not know what Bridge is or who Cheryl Dijja is. And it's also crazy. Did you hear what she said at one point? I don't know if I can find it again.
Strategies that you need to meet this demand because the change is already here.
I'm fucking amazing. The change is already here. They're putting into practice Bridge's initiative because we have been calling this out for quite a while now, and companies are feeling the financial hit. Even if they're foregoing short-term financial benefit for long-term cultural victory, they cannot forego all finances. They do need an income. By removing visible DEI terminology in teams and making it, like Bridge says, the job of everyone in the company, their change is already here. We will not notice what they're doing. They're smugly believing that by lying to us and saying that they're getting rid of DEI, that their change will keep continuing and they will be able to reap more wins in this culture war. Back to upper echelon's video.
Dismantled their programs as well, despite remaining committed to the concept of DEI.
Hold on, I'm gonna rewind a second so we get the full sentence.
Or how about Zoom, who dismantled their programs as well, despite remaining committed to the concept of DEI. Google and Facebook also cut their teams associated with, in the case of Google, improving representation of underrepresented groups in leadership by 30% by 2025.
See, I'm a little confused now. Where he even mentions in the Zoom article how Zoom says that they're cutting their DEI, but that they remain focused on their diversity initiatives. Here's the Zoom article. Zoom Video Communications fired a team of workers focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as a part of its recent round of job cuts, making it the latest company to change course on DEI efforts. The company will instead work with external consultants to engage all of our employees with a focus on inclusion. Chief Operating Officer Aparna Bawa wrote to staff last week. She said Zoom needed to change its approach to DEI, according to a memo seen by Bloomberg News, adding that some work will still be done by internal staff. They have changed nothing. They are not doing anything. They are continuing more of the same while lying to you so that you believe that you are winning. If you believe that you are winning, you will become complacent. You will no longer call this out. You'll go back and buy products you were previously boycotting. You will let your guard down, just like what happened when the gaming industry was infiltrated back in 2014. We laughed at them, we mocked them, we said no one will take this seriously, and look what we have to deal with in current year. I think it's a good thing, though. People are already tired of the work culture. No one wants to do anything that isn't part of their job description. The mentality is already at, I'm not doing extra work if I'm not paid for it. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Even the people in my chat, they're just like, yeah, I have to fill out these diversity forms. I have to go to these diversity and inclusion meetings. I have to do all of this stuff. And you can't just say no. And again, it doesn't matter if you disagree with the ideology they're pushing. If you can't escape it, if it becomes part of your everyday work, if you are expected to just put up with it, because what are you going to do? Speak up and lose your job? Are you going to quit your job? What are you going to do? Right? If you can't escape it, if it's in your work, if it's in your entertainment, it just will become de facto the dominant ideology, the dominant culture, which is what they want to happen. Again, like I've said before, the modern audience does not exist. They are creating the modern audience. They are creating people that will know this ideology and nothing else. They will create the people who think that this is normal and will just go along with it. I think he thinks that these companies are just doing lip service for whatever reason they may have. It makes the tone he says it in make sense. Which is why I'm pointing out the flaw in that logic. The market has corrected it. Get broke, go woke. They found other ways to support it and keep it going. Those ways didn't exist in 2014. Yes. Even with the market correction, that's why I've been saying these people do not care about short-term profit. They care about the long-term cultural victory. You are still making a dent because they do still need income, right? Which is why they keep changing terminology. They keep hiding it. They keep obfuscating. They keep lying to you because they're not at their end goal yet. You became a Christian because of all the woke insanity. And then there's another article. As DEI gets more divisive, companies are ditching their teams. Zoom and Snap are among companies that have cut roles in recent weeks. And again, every one of these articles all mention George Floyd. Now corporate America is pulling back, cutting DEI jobs and outsourcing the work to consultants. DEI jobs peaked in early 2023 before falling 5% that year and shrinking by 8% so far in 2024. And this shrink is not only because they overhired for DEI positions, they hired too many people, but it's also a purposeful shrink in current year. According to Revelio Labs data shared with the Washington Post, the attrition rate for DEI roles has been about double that of non-DEI jobs. And I think last time I read this, I brought up how journalists in the gaming industry were trying to gaslight you into thinking that it wasn't DEI roles that were being cut, even though in the same articles they affirmed, yes, these roles are what's being cut. In recent weeks, Zoom axed its internal DEI team amid broader layoffs, and Snap cut workers who worked on retention and engagement efforts for employees from underrepresented groups. Meta, Tesla, DoorDash, Lyft, Home Depot, Wayfair, and X were among other major companies making steep cuts in 2023, slashing the size of their DEI teams by 50% or more. The overall number of DEI officers has decreased, said Lisa Simon, Revelio's senior economist. But it's not enough to destroy all the strides that happened after 2020. And in the articles that I bring up in my SHRM video that I released after my last stream, I bring up the articles where, again, these people bold-faced say, we have made strides since 2020. We are on the right track. Getting rid of the visible language to make sure we can keep doing the work in peace is imperative. At Zoom, Chief Operating Officer Aparna Bawa told employees that the company would replace its internal DEI team with DEI consultants who would champion inclusion by embedding our values directly into our people programs rather than a separate initiative, according to a January 29th memo seen by The Post. It doesn't matter if you disagree, this will be part of your work. Colin Rodriguez, the company's head of global corporate communications, said Zoom remains committed to DEI work. Snap made a similar decision in February, according to a reporting from Business Insider. Snap did not respond to a request for comment. Corporate America's retreat from DEI has coincided with increased legal risk and political animosity towards systemic efforts to boost racial equity. State legislators have introduced at least 65 anti-DEI bills since 2023, and the resignation of Claudine Gay, Harvard University's first black president, amid plagiarism allegations in January, was billed as the beginning of the end for DEI in America's institutions by the conservative activist who led the campaign to oust her. Mentions of DEI on corporate earnings calls have plunged in the past year, according to the Wall Street Journal. After the resignation of Claudine Gay, and when Bridge started putting out their smart brief letters, a lot of the articles and a lot of the terminology Bridge was using was to reassure people that these companies aren't actually cutting these teams. They are abiding by the Bridge tenets of obfuscating what the teams are doing and embedding DE&I as a business practice that everyone will commit to. For companies that were never really committed, this is the perfect air cover for backing off of diversity, said Joel Emerson, CEO of DEI consultancy Paradigm. Not all companies downsizing teams are giving up on the work, Emerson said, noting that some employers overhired when they established their DEI teams. And this is where, when they say this is the perfect air cover for backing off of diversity, where I think some companies are being genuine, and you can tell by the terminology they use. The Tractor Supply Company, they don't reaffirm their commitment to DE&I, and they even outright state we will no longer report to the Human Rights Commission. I say this can be looked at as a small win. This can be looked at as a company that actually is eschewing the entire ideology that these people are pushing. Obviously, still check up on them and make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing. But at least since they're not using the same terminology, they aren't being outright liars like CNN and like Microsoft and like John Deere. I don't know that it ever made sense to have a 25-person diversity team sitting to the side of a core business function, Emerson said. Companies should be able to say, we've tried this, it didn't have an impact, we're going to try something different. The recalibration is happening under serious legal pressure. Last year, when the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in college admissions, the decision didn't apply directly to employers, but the ruling kicked off an effort driven largely by conservative activists to dismantle race-conscious policies in other domains of American life. In July, 13 Republican attorneys general sent a letter urging Microsoft and other Fortune 100 companies to re-examine their DEI policies in response to the ruling. America First Legal, a group backed by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller, has filed legal complaints over diversity practices at scores of companies, including United Airlines, Kellogg's, Nike, and other organizations such as the FBI, National Football League, and Major League Baseball. And in response to these Republican attorneys generals making this letter, there were other groups, like minority leader groups, who made a letter to these Fortune 100 companies telling them to reaffirm their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Edward Blum, the conservative activist behind the lawsuits that toppled affirmative action in college admissions, is suing venture capital firm Fearless Fund over its grant program for early-stage businesses owned by black women. And we've talked about Fearless Fund before. I don't think it's relevant to the upper echelon video, so I'm not going to bring it up again. Blum's group has also found success targeting major law firms over their diversity fellowships. Even before the tide turned last summer, DEI work was an uphill battle. As companies' commitments have wavered, DEI professionals have had their work challenged. Anytime I'd raise something with the word equity, I was told it scares people away, said a former head of DEI for a gaming startup who was laid off in January. After stepping into the role in 2020, he said he was disheartened by resistance from executives to pay transparency policies and employee resource groups. The DEI budget kept facing cuts, he said, and he was constantly under pressure to show a return on investment. When it comes to DEI, businesses are interested until they're not. These positions are going away every day, which is again where Bridge comes in and says you don't need to have a budget for DEI. You don't need to spend money on this initiative specifically because it's not a marketing initiative. It's not a hiring initiative. It should just be something that is in your everyday operations as a company. FBI mentioned noticing. Exactly. Noticing. And this ties into the video we watched the other day where the DEI After 5 chick said that DEI is the new N-word. It is a ridiculous comparison, and it's hilarious to actually hear someone say out loud. But what she means is that the word equity is a word that you can't say out loud. It has become a power word. People are afraid when you say it. People are afraid of this word, and so they need to change the terminology to continue getting people to agree with them. Which is again why SHRM is removing the word equity, and those true believers are freaking out because they've been taught to respond to this kind of stimuli. Some groups have been imploring companies to maintain their DEI focus. And this is what I was just talking about with the other people who sent the letter asking the Fortune 100 to reaffirm. Tech companies who previously agreed to address bias and discrimination and create gender opportunities in the workforce are now quietly defunding diversity pledges, the letter reads. Some companies are bucking the trend. J.M. Smucker, Victoria's Secret, Michaels, Moderna, Prudential, and ConocoPhillips were among big corporations that extended their DEI teams by 50% or more in 2023. With 30 years' experience in diversity work, Christina Jimenez, a head of DEI at RHR International, a leadership consulting firm, says she has watched the pendulum swing back and forth between support and resistance. But this moment seems particularly fraught, she said. Her clients feel like they're in a battle zone all the time. They're not sure what to do next, but they understand if they don't do something, their talent strategies, their culture, and their ability to succeed is all at risk.
Saying, quote, "Our commitment to DEI remains at the center of who we are as a company, and yet these initiatives across the board have been slashed by as much as 90% in some cases. Corporate America, specifically public..."
So why do you think that is, sir? Why do you think that they keep saying our commitment is assured, we affirm our commitment, we are steadfast in pushing DE&I, but they're cutting their teams? Why do you think that is? He's just ignoring the words that he is reading in these articles. This is just like when I brought up Robbie Starbuck before. He said the largest HR association in the world just announced that they're dropping equity in DEI and reverting back to inclusion and diversity. HR people are losing their minds over it. SHRM says that they're making this big change to address the current shortcomings of DE&I programs, which have led to societal backlash and increasing polarization. And I brought this up when I went over this a few days ago. These people are animalistic, responding to buzzword stimuli that they have been taught to respond to. These are just like people who repeat Orange Man bad or J.K. Rowling is a TERF, but then when asked to explain why, they have no idea. They parrot talking points and they do not think for themselves. And if you are reading this and you read, while we shift to I&D, our commitment to advancing equity remains steadfast. Equity will be integrated under the broader inclusion framework, continuing to be a priority in our strategy and leadership decisions. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance necessary to read, we're dropping equity, but really we're not, and then saying, we won, we did it, they're getting rid of it, it's a win, congratulations. I don't get it. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like the crazy person for being like, hey, they're not actually dropping it. They literally tell you in plain text that they're not actually dropping it. It's like pointing out the emperor is actually wearing no clothes, and people are just like, no, you're crazy. You won, now stop looking. Yeah. And then, moving from the true believers, again, don't believe me. Believe what they say when they talk to their own people about what they're doing. I played this on stream. I made a long video about this. It's up on my channel if you want more information specifically about Sherm. But I'm only going to play a little bit of this so you can hear directly from him what he's saying.
So, my friends, it's time for a revisit, a reset, and re-envisioning
a great reset.
DE&I. We don't need to eliminate it. For those CEOs who says DEI must die, they are lunatics. Like, that is insane. Of course, we have an incredibly diverse workforce, and we need this work. We're only going to become more diverse. But we do need to rethink it in 21st century terms. At SHRM, for example, we now refer to inclusion and diversity. We're going to keep it simple. Yes, we're going to always focus on D, but we're going to lead with inclusion, because we need a world where inclusion is front and center, and that means inclusion for all, not some people. Everyone has a right to feel that they belong in the workplace and that they are included. Now, if we think the game that we played over 30 years, which is to make some people feel badly about what they have done or their ancestors have done or whatever, if you think that's going to solve a problem, it didn't work over 30 years. So by definition, we've got to adapt a new approach. We're going to...
Wow, who would have thought, once again, that you might have needed white men to help push your communistic ideology? Who would have thought that there was enough white men to mount a resistance against what you are pushing? And that telling them that they are the root of all evil would make them not endeared to what you're trying to sell them. Wow, imagine that. So now, you're probably going to see a push of, well, actually, white people need to be included. White people are important to diversity as well. We need a... Remember when they said several years ago, we need to have a white racial awakening so that white people understand what's going on? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Deja vu, you feel like you saw this yesterday? You did. Like I said, there's going to be some looping today, but it is important for me to not just say why Upper Echelon is wrong in his video. It is important to show it. It is important to show my work, as it were. So even if there's some loops, it is a necessary loop. And moving back to his video. Bing!
Publicly traded companies governed by stockholders that have a fiduciary responsibility to make more money perpetually do not care about the concept of diversity. They never have and never will. They care about the idea that diversity could push their financial performance higher or give them a real...
Again, it's not about financial performance right now. They are eschewing financial performance for cultural victory. In the beginning, this was about companies being sold the idea that, yes, diversity can make them more money. That BlackRock would make up for the losses they will suffer from the people who disagree with pushing DE&I and ESG tenets. Once enough of their preachers got into the company, once enough of these people who are pushing DEI as a moral imperative get embedded into the company, it stops being about profit and it starts being about pushing the ideology. It has not been about the money for quite a few years now. Civ 5 cultural victory. And again, Bridge has acknowledged that yes, there is no inherent financial benefit. This is why BlackRock was offering support. This is why they want to treat this as something that everyone in the company must do, so that the companies who are starting to be like, well, maybe we should stop doing this, the preachers can come in and be like, no, you don't need to stop. This is still a moral imperative. You can stop spending money on specific teams.
Realistically better shot at achieving financial results, which McKinsey strongly insinuated in 2015, doubling down multiple additional times over the subsequent years. However, after implementing these programs and dialing them up during times of civil unrest in particular, these companies are witnessing reality as they see in real time that the programs do not have a financial benefit associated with them. There's nothing wrong with the concepts of diversity, equity, or inclusion, so...
I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, what? I have to refuse to believe that Upper Echelon of all people doesn't know that diversity, equity, and inclusion are subversion of language. So I'm going to just hope that that was an accident that he said that, and I'm just not gonna have to address it, honestly. I'm just like, again, I don't think he's being disingenuous in this video that he put out. I've liked watching his videos in the past, so I'm just assuming he doesn't know anything about Bridge. But I will say, him coming out and saying that does trigger some member berries about how Bridge and, oh god, what was it, Enthusiast Gaming? We're talking about how they need to utilize content creators from like Twitch and YouTube and TikTok to help push the messaging because of the audience trust that they inspire. Run it back a bit, please. I'll run it back. I'll play it again.
And dialing them up during times of civil unrest in particular. These companies are witnessing reality as they see in real time that the programs do not have a financial benefit associated with them. There's nothing wrong with the concepts of diversity, equity, or inclusion, so anyone watching this who wants to somehow use this video as a demonstration that diversity is therefore a bad thing, don't do it, because it isn't, okay? That's not what this is about. But those concepts are not a causal factor behind higher revenue. As a result, corporate America is backing away from the concept of ESG. They're backing away from the concept of DEI, and that process obviously won't be instantaneous. There's a number of consulting companies.
They're backing away from the concept of ESG and DEI. CNN dismantles race and equality team amid national mass DEI disbandments. National mass DEI disbandments, which is something that I called would happen back in March. I listened to Bridge. I heard what Bridge was saying. I saw all the companies involved and supporting Bridge, and I said, you will see this in action. If I don't get the word out about what Bridge actually is, if people don't stop thinking it's merely a rebranding of DEI, we will start seeing them obfuscate the language and say, nope, we're dropping it, DEI bad, we're not going to do it anymore. But actually we are, we're just going to change the language. CNN has moved to dismantle its acclaimed race and equality team as DEI programs across the country have been eliminated. According to journalist Phil Lewis, the network disbanded the team of 3 reporters on Wednesday, July 10th, as Mark Thompson, CNN's chief executive, announced that the channel is laying off 100 employees. Thompson stated that the layoff would be a move to re-strategize and rethink the company's news-gathering procedures, detailed as a one newsroom concept. Deadline reports that CNN's one newsroom strategy would merge both linear and digital news gathering into one. A CNN spokesperson speaking to Lewis denied that the race and equality team would be disbanded amid layoffs, and instead would be fully and completely incorporated into CNN's future vision. Where have we heard that before? Man, that sounds familiar, but like I don't know what they're saying. What is this? What could this possibly mean? The spokesperson insisted that the investment is still 100% there, but the unnamed person did confirm that the team no longer existed as it initially began, adding, for all intents and purposes, the team is not a team anymore. They're assigned to different areas so that their perspective and work is brought into all types of programming. It's not a unit in the way it was before, but race and equality is very much still their focus. Don't believe your lying eyes, chat. Don't believe your lying eyes. One reporter from the race and equality team was laid off as a part of the disbanding. The other 2 reporters will now be reworked into different roles throughout the CNN newsroom. CNN's award-winning team was first created in 2020 in the aftermath of police officers murdering George Floyd. And here we see how we have to live in the years after Floyd. Amen. Hallowed be his name. Companies across various industries ramped up their DEI efforts as a response, with CNN using their race and equality team to cover America's racial reckoning, as detailed by the outlet. Jeff Zucker released a company memo in 2020 announcing the team's creation. The recent conversations we've had in our newsrooms have been informative and constructive. We have valued them, we heard you, and we will continue listening, Zucker noted, per The Hill. There are structural changes and investments we can and will make to better cover what is happening in our society. We are committed to doing that. CNN's decision arrives as race and equality efforts and DEI programs have been slashed around the nation. Don't know what DEI is? We've got you covered if you're wondering what this not-so-new acronym stands for. And of course, they're going to talk about DEI. It's now found itself at the center of debates at the 2024 election, mockingly referring to the programs as discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, which is very true. Look at a couple of the DEI eliminations from around the country for context. Companies like Wayfair, Meta, Tesla, Lyft, Home Depot, DoorDash, and X and Twitter all made cuts to their DEI teams in late 2023, with more eliminations following in 2024. CNN reported in March that the U.S. House Office of Diversity and Inclusion, first created in 2020 to create a congressional workforce that reflected America's diversity, would be dissolved as a part of a government spending bill. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong because I'm bad at remembering dates, but when we read the declassified CIA DEI initiative on stream, I am pretty sure that that was from 2022. So again, it doesn't matter that they dissolve the names of these things, they are still doing, quote unquote, the work. According to an April report from the National Review, the University of Texas at Austin is shutting down its DEI division. The move will demote DEI deans back to professors, with some DEI-oriented positions being completely phased out. Again, they are just reassigning these people so that it becomes the work of everyone at the organization and not just their sole position as a DEI officer. Fox News reported in May that along with the University of Texas, 158 colleges have moved to disband DEI programs. One professional told the outlet the reason for the anti-DEI crusades is due to a really significant public choice conundrum built into it. Stop saying the work, my liver can't take it. Stop drinking every time I say the work, you'll go crazy. I have so many tabs open now. Back to upper echelon.
And diversity-focused initiatives still actively pushing for these things because they make a great deal of money off of advising about them. But you can't influence the tides of the ocean.
They do make a great deal of money off of advising. However, Bridge does more than just make money from advising. Bridge is propped up by some of the most powerful and large companies in the world. And in addition to that, you can attend their meetings for free. You can get their briefs for free. They are giving a lot of instruction without people having to pay. It's only if you want to be an official partner with them, or if you want to promote someone to be a shining star or whatever the hell it's called, where they're promoting people who are diverse into specific positions. That's what you would pay Bridge for. You could attend their meetings for $200K. Bitch, I don't have $200K to spend and I'm attending the meeting.
With a large bucket. And the bedrock imperative of these companies, for better or for worse, is to earn more money, which DEI, in its current form, does not help them do. Meanwhile, these topics in general have become a rhetorical battleground between internet denizens who mostly have no idea what the concepts even are, let alone where they came from. One side screams about how DEI is the driving force behind the total collapse of video games and any other industry that I'm a part of, and the other...
That's really ironic that he says the people who claim that are uninformed. I always bring receipts, chat.
Other yells about how anyone who doesn't agree with them is a racist or a bigot, when in reality it's most likely just a bureaucratic corporate initiative born from a misrepresented research paper formed under a misidentified expectation that forcefully increasing diversity will somehow improve financial prospects.
And this is where he lost me. I was like, how does he spend the entire video parroting what I've said for the last 7.5 months? How does he read Microsoft and Zoom and all these other companies reaffirming their commitment to DE&I, and then his conclusion is, well, these are just silly companies believing something off a faulty study. It wasn't their fault. They didn't really want to do anything. It's not ideological. It was all about the profit, and now they're realizing it's not profitable, and so they're getting rid of it. Don't listen to the people who are telling you they're not getting rid of it. They're grifters. They're grifting and lying. What? I got to this point and I was just like exasperated, man. I was like, what? How? I don't understand.
Which isn't true, and will cause these initiatives to evaporate just as fast as they initially sprung up. which we see happening already as companies realize the mistake. The truth about DEI is a lot less scary than some people seem to believe. It's a lot less organized or conspiratorial, at least.
How do you look at Bridge and see how many global companies are involved? You even showed under the umbrella of some of those companies how many smaller companies are involved. How can you say it's smaller and not as organized as people make you believe? Like, again, I feel like Alex Jones here, where I'm like screaming and showing receipts and just like ripping off my t-shirt trying to find memes. And people are just like, don't listen to the crazy guy. It's not happening. Don't believe him. I was like, what? No, I don't think he's a plant, chat. I don't think he's a plant. I don't think he's bought. I just think he doesn't know what Bridge is. And so he's trying to approach it from a normie, like, centrist moral lens. Right?
In my personal opinion, because it's really just a simple explanation of a claim about how doing this thing will make you earn more. And now that a bunch of companies are actually doing it, they're realizing, hey, wait a second. No, it doesn't make us earn more. So they're
correct.
Stopping.
That's correct. But they're not stopping. They have been infiltrated by the ideologues. They're not stopping. They are expanding. They're getting rid of visible language, visible teams, and everyone will do it. Chad, I must remind you that if you go touch this man, I will ban you. I mean, yeah, please don't harass this dude. Like, he's probably like, what? He's got 600-something thousand subscribers, so he's like 10 times my size. More than that, maybe, because I'm only like 40-something. But it's like, his platform is vastly larger than mine, but still, please do not start shit. Please do not harass this man.
Video's kind of boring, I know that. It's just a bunch of raw information because people need more information in today's day and age. And
wait, hold on. I'm gonna rewind.
No, it doesn't make us earn more, so they're stopping. The video's kind of boring, I know that. It's just a bunch of raw information because people need more information in today's day and age and a lot less sensationalism.
I agree, which is why I bring receipts and I do 5-hour streams and I say, I know your brain's gonna melt, chat, because you're about to read 5 hours of white pages, 5 hours of PDF documents, 5 hours of me reading corporate schlock lingo so that you can understand what is going on. I don't like skimming articles. I don't like skipping through videos. I don't like playing them on fast forward. I want you guys to get the information directly. I'm here to commentate, but I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to show you what's happening and hopefully try to make it amusing enough that you don't fall asleep while listening to it. Punching up! And to expand on this as well, we bring up the Kim Belair clip so fucking often.
And if you're in development and you are part of like that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that, do not wait until the end to call your consultants. Bring them in at the beginning, and instead of asking them, hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist? Or is this deeply offensive thing we did deeply offensive? Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Like, ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. Because they have to consider, like, I say that out as a joke, but it's actually very, very true, because if you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing and who have to deal with mitigating harm and with keeping the sentiment around their game and their project positive, there's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them with both ethically and financially. You can say this is important. And it's also a valid discussion to have, because if you're working with a very thin narrative budget and you work in AAA, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised or dismayed by the amount of money that marketing can give you.
Don't listen to their gaslighting and their rewriting of history when they try to say that you are the problem on Twitter or in their news articles. Listen to the words that come out of their mouth when they are in a room of their ideologues who believe the same thing that they do. They are very honest about what they are doing, and they think that they can convince you otherwise because they think you are too dumb to notice what's happening. And if enough normies can believe their rewriting of history, they can just keep going on as normal. I'm going to bring up once again, when I looked at CAA's PDF about their diversity in TV study, they are again very, very blatant about what diversity means. For the purposes of this report, and in line with recent studies from relevant organizations, we have chosen to use the term diverse to identify individuals from non-white racial and ethnic backgrounds. In accordance with racial and ethnic categories on the U.S. Census, diverse includes Black or African American, Native American and Alaska Native, Asian American, Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, as well as Hispanic and Latino individuals. Therefore, non-diverse refers specifically to white, non-Hispanic, or Latino individuals. In categorizing a television series debut as diverse or non-diverse, we reference the current percentage of non-white individuals in the United States, which is approximately 40% of the population. We recognize that in characterizing a series as diverse, more than half of the series' regular cast may still be white. Recent reports project non-white individuals will become the majority in the U.S. population by 2045. Therefore, we further segmented diverse debuts into two subcategories: moderately diverse and highly diverse. We defined diverse debuts with at least a 40% but less than 60% non-white cast as moderately diverse, and diverse debuts with at least a 60% non-white cast as highly diverse. We acknowledge that the impact of talent diversity in live-action scripted series differ from animation and children's programming. In live-action content, it is difficult to differentiate between the race and ethnicity of a character and the actor playing that character. In animation and children's series, these do not always align. However, audiences today can easily research who voices their favorite animated characters and, as a result, may feel a lack of authenticity when non-diverse actors voice diverse characters. In response, two high-profile animated series recently recast actors in series' regular voiceover roles to better align with the characters they portray. While diversity among voice actors may impact audiences indirectly, they are included in the study of scripted series. Once again, we have known for, at a minimum, probably 40 years, that diversity just meant less white people, less men, less straight people. They are quite literally saying it bold-faced with no other interpretation here. This is not subversive. This is them just saying, this is what we're doing, this is what it means. All you have to do is ask him, you honestly believe these people have been doing this for over 30 plus years and you think they'll stop because it's not making them money? True and real? Kirsha's voice acted by an actual fox? Yeah, that's why I make so many retard noises. Back to the video!
I'm guilty of that too. A lot of people have sensationalist headlines and titles and video content and, oh my gosh, the world is ending. And again, I'm guilty of it myself. But I'm trying to go down the route of just providing information. That's much more interesting to me than sensationalist grifting, which I see a lot of on social media lately. So yeah, that's it. That's what this video is. Just an attempt at raw information. That's it. That's the truth about DEI. Where it came from, how it grew, and probably where it's headed. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. It would be very much appreciated for anyone who wants to subscribe monthly to look at locals and Patreon. You get nothing for it. It just keeps the content coming. Also a special VPN discount link.
So that's pretty much where the video ends. And it's insane to me how he asserts that what he is saying is truth. Don't believe anyone else. He's bringing you the truth. Again, I show you everything that I am working off of. I show you the connections that I make. I show you the articles. The articles are all there in my Discord after streams that you can click on and use as a source yourself. I'm not hiding anything from you guys. And if I end up being wrong about something, I am full on ready to admit that I was wrong about something, like I did at the beginning, with maybe there isn't a link between the original Bridge 1.0 and Bridge 2.0. There could be, but I don't have hard evidence on that link. Don't believe anyone else. Gee, guys, sounds like he wants to be the mainstream media. Yeah, anyone that's not him is grifting. Telling us to trust no one else is a common leftist liberal tactic. Kirsche has a hidden agenda, turning every man into a himbo. God, I wish. This was a 16-minute, 46-second video, and it took me almost an hour and a half to show you all of the sources to prove why he is wrong about what he is saying, which is really disheartening because he's right about a good section of the video, but somehow, even though he says the same things that I've been saying, he reads the same reaffirmation to the commitment of DEI that I've been reading, and he comes to the complete opposite conclusion that, yeah, these companies aren't lying, they are actually getting rid of it. Who is this guy? He's a massive YouTuber that I have watched for quite a while. He's got 695k subscribers. Like, he's huge. He's huge. In that half hour, you went from not really knowing the topic to having a decent understanding with no bias. I mean, I make jokes, right? I try to make it at least a little bit interesting because just reading corporate schlock lingo is boring, and it takes a long time to move through all of it. Munya, Kenny-san, thank you for the 20 gift members. Thank you. He's right enough to conveniently stop at the point where anyone believing his words would lay down their swords. Unfortunately so. And when you try reporting things accurately, there are going to be people that try to completely discredit you and make you out to be something that you're not. And let me take a little peek-see here. There was this guy who was running around in the comments of that upper echelon video. And somebody, I don't know who Adventurist is, but thank you. Kirsche's been exposing so much of the secrets that they are openly spoken about by their defenders, yet most people who are against DEI rarely ever mention Bridge. And this guy responded, Kirsche has a narrow view of DEI and its role in the corporate world. She only has surface-level knowledge on the same level as a majority whom either for or against. The majority of people stop reading academic journals after college or high school. Her being a React streamer who focuses on viewing skewed articles with limited context isn't helping her case. It's also not helping that she rarely discusses topics from an impartial stance. She's always trying to be entertaining while giving a mostly Republican stance. Saying she has exposed anything or that she could be an accurate voice for either side of the argument is odd. Hell, even when she is doing interviews, it comes off as somewhat of a comedy, unlike how serious Pippa is when she interviews someone. I'm pretty sure I only have 2 interviews on my channel. One is from when I was a Terra streamer, and the other one is when I interviewed the NFT woman and got her to basically dig a hole for herself. I don't know how you watch that interview and find it comedic. I'm pretty sure this guy is just lying about having watched any of my content. Maybe he's watched clips. Leave Pippa out of this, you bastard! And like I said, he's been going around doing this in other sections. There's a lot more on this topic than what your video presents, and I'd suggest looking at Kirsche Verstahl's coverage on the topic. She's been talking about Bridge for months and is probably the most knowledgeable online creator on the topic. That's true! And again, the disingenuous, false narrative pusher says, Kirsche has a narrow view of DEI and its role in the corporate world. Not much better than those who dismiss it outright with only surface-level knowledge. And by surface-level knowledge of having 5+ hour-long streams, reading their internal documents. Over the years, she has shifted towards being more of a React streamer who touches on politics from a Republican standpoint. I resent that fact. Rather than an impartial researcher focused on facts. Her primary aim is to entertain, and she often appears unhinged when quickly scanning and reacting to random web articles. Chat, when have I ever quickly scanned an article instead of reading the entire fucking thing? Sometimes even accidentally reading the same passage twice? Who's gonna tell? This isn't a garden variety anti-chat. This is someone who is purposefully trying to make it out like I am not someone who knows what I'm talking about. He is trying to make sure other people disregard me entirely because he's painting me as someone who is just a wild, out-of-touch reactionary. While Kirsche can be entertaining, as I've followed her since her Terra MMO days, she's not comparable to Upper Echelon. Upper Echelon dives deeply into research, academic journals, and connections for months before making a video. I'm gonna say this guy probably read somewhere, or maybe even saw my Pippa collab where I talked about being a Terra streamer for a long time, but there's zero chance he ever actually watched me even back in the Terra days. Because even back in the Terra days, I would read articles when I was waiting for Tangerine to make groups for us. I would read articles while I was waiting on Q-Pops, and the only time that I would quote-unquote quickly scan is when I had to stop reading an article because I got a dungeon pop, and then I would go back to reading the article after the dungeon was over. Occasionally, Kirsche brings in people for interviews, but even those often come off as somewhat comedic. Frankly, Pippa is a much more serious interviewer when she's dealing with non-VTubers. Pippa's not a political streamer. What are you even talking about? What are you even talking about? She's not a political streamer. Why would he be bringing her into this? Like, her interviews are fun, don't get me wrong, but she's not doing them for a political reason. I'm just a liar trying to make you, who has done your research, as being ignorant. Yeah. That's exactly what he's doing. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of these people. You're going to be seeing a lot more of these people popping up, trying to discredit what I'm saying, who have never watched my content, trying to claim that they're a fan. Because if they say, I'm a fan of Kirsche, but here's why she's wrong in current year, they're going to make themselves look as if they're more credible. I can be wrong about things, but when I am wrong, I typically admit it. I don't like forming anything that is false. I don't want to push anything that is false to you guys, which is why I try to show as much as I possibly can. Do not believe me. Believe your eyes and believe your ears of what the people directly are saying. I am looking at the same content you are. You're a fan of Kirsche, but here's why she's wrong. She's a woman who yaps too much. True! True and real. I've been watching since Terra. Proof? Oh, you have none? Sadly, that's true. More bold-faced lies to obfuscate Kirsche. Yeah. People who have no idea who I am, and especially people who are already averse to listening to what an anime woman has to say, will look at what this guy's saying and be like, yeah, he's probably right. He's probably right about that. Upper Echelon has done a lot of research. She probably hasn't. I might be trying to drive a rift. I don't think it's more about rifting. It's more about just making sure people don't actually get access to information. Never saw me in my Terra days, and even then you can tell he's full of shit. Oh god, unfortunately you're probably right. Yeah, you're the only reason I bring up this like random YouTube commenter is because I am a political streamer, and especially if I criticize, you know, larger political streamers than me, there's going to be people who just lie about who I am, what I do, how I present things, and try to discredit what I'm saying. If someone shows me evidence about why I'm wrong about something, I am more than happy to admit, yeah, you know, fuck, I was wrong, and that's unfortunate. But we all fuck up. We're only human. False flaggers come with the terror.